about non-tonal music, it may have been common amongst composers and in certain kinds of university settings. It was not common as common repertoire. It simply wasn't. And people that listened to standard works of music generally did not listen to non-tonal music. The one piece which is at the farthest stretch of tonal possibilities is, of course, The Rite of Spring, which became famous for various reasons. One is that, of course, it's a ballet, and two, that it was written by a composer that had also then escaped the revolution of 1917 and had reacted in his own way, moved out of Russia, as did Rachmaninoff, pretty much the same story. What I would like to do is to see how music got there, and I'd like to do it briefly. So the first thing I wanted to do is to say that what we call great music, which is really 1700 to 1905, 10 if you want, is based on what I call archetypes. And those archetypes are like skeletons, like the bones of a structure. And the bones are the same from about 1600, I would say, to the end of Wagner, the death of Wagner. And I'm going to play a few samples of those to see, so that everybody can understand what I'm talking about. There are probably 15 set of bones, or 15 to 20 set of bones, that when they become enfleshed, become then Baroque bones, classical bones, romantic bones, by the flesh and the muscles that you put on top of them. So here's an example. This would be the basic bone structure. This is a series of what are called suspensions, and these are 7 to 6 suspensions. Just that, okay? Now, let me enflesh them out, let's say, starting with Mozart. I'm going to give 2 examples from Mozart of just that. Listen to it again. I'm going to transpose it for you. And here's an example from his piano quintet. Another example from Mozart. Okay, so same bones, same composer, different way of fleshing it out. Now, going on to another type of series of what you can call bones. Here's another one, typical set of progressions that are the basic underlying structure from 5 to 6 to 5 to 6 to 5 to 6 with a cadence. First set that comes to mind, that's Opus 109 of Beethoven, Opus 79 of Beethoven. Same combination. Another set of bones is this set of bones. Trying to avoid parallel fifths. You see it in the works of Palestrina and a lot of Renaissance composers. And here would be a sort of fleshing out. And the going down version. Okay, that's another set. Another set is the series of suspensions coming up or going down. From Mozart's 39th Symphony. Same series. And the reverse can also happen, and you can watch this on the keyboard. This is where you go up instead, and this is how the voices work. The bottom middle voice crosses over, forms a suspension, and crosses over, forms another suspension. That's another set of bones, okay? You will find that there are perhaps 15 of those which pervade all of tonal music through Wagner. And when you get to 1900, those sets of basic archetypes stop being used, but gradually. So let's try an experiment. Let's say that if you, let's do it with other kinds of chords. possible with different chords. It doesn't have the same kind of tension that this produces, but it's the same idea. Now, as you get to the middle parts of the early 1910s, you start to find a breaking up of what you call normal tonality and different versions. There's a French version, which is, of course, Debussy and Ravel. We all know what it sounds like. We don't have to say much about it, except to realize that Debussy is very involved in parallelisms, parallel dominant seventh chords, and that other kinds of parallels can also have those kinds of parallelisms. And when you hit that problematic time, which I would say is 1910, you end up with distinctly different points of view. I'm going to pick what we call free atonality, and of course the best known piece from that period is Schoenberg's Opus 11. I don't have it in front of me, but I'll improvise in a what we call free atonal way. Now this stays non-tonal unless it goes to a cadence. If it goes to a cadence, then it has a tonal implication. So if I start this way, that has no tonal center. But if I were to do the same thing and add a tonal center at the end, there you go. Now I've produced a center, which sounds silly because the previous stuff has no reference to it. But yet there was a lot of music that was written that way. If we move ahead, we end up with two kinds of free atonality. There's the atonality which is sluggish, like this, and moody. It sounds very romantic and sort of like the Impressionist painting of the time. And then the only audience-friendly music, from my standpoint, from this point of view, is if, in fact, it has excitement and speed. So that instead of sounding like this sort of moody, you're in a bad mood, you're in a good mood, it has this. See, now that has some wow quality to it, even though it's not tonal. And I think it is one of the ways that one can write effective music that is freely atonal in that manner. Then we arrive at Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, which of course is the major work of the 20th century. And it has perhaps 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways of writing non-tonal music, or music which is based on a different point of view. I wouldn't say it's atonal or freely atonal. I would say that it harmonizes music in a very different way. So, for example, the opening, and this section that continues here. What you're getting is folk music that is harmonized as if it had folk instruments in back of it. So if you take another folk tune like, okay, a common thing that little kids supposedly sing, and supposing you harmonize it, not so nice, but supposing you do,